in Zimbabwe, in Yugoslavia, in Venezuela.
People were millionaires, then billionaires, then still couldn't buy bread.
The same goes for bonds. Government debt sounds safe, until the government is the problem. Shares didn't slowly lose value. They became untradeable. Exchanges closed.
Start with the ones that disappear first. Paper claims. Stocks feel solid until the market stops functioning.
In Weimar, Germany, in Argentina,
Russia.
in dozens of smaller collapses.
At some point, every economy breaks. Not slowly, not politely. One day the numbers work, the next day they don't. Banks open, currencies exist, prices still have digits, but value slips.
They don't wobble. They don't correct. They go to zero, quietly, completely, and often permanently. Because when an economy collapses, something strange happens. Most assets don't slowly decline.
History likes to pretend these moments are rare. They aren't. They're just inconvenient to remember.
This matters now because we're living in a period where stability feels normal again.
Markets move, governments reassure, institutions look solid. That's usually when memory fades. So let's rewind.
Because history is brutally consistent. When money systems fail, 5 kinds of assets tend to keep working.
Not to predict collapse, but to understand what actually survives when it happens, and what absolutely doesn't.
Not perfectly, not evenly, but enough to matter. And almost everything else doesn't. Start with the ones that disappear first. Paper claims. Stocks feel solid until the market stops functioning.
In Weimar, Germany, in Argentina,
Russia.
in dozens of smaller collapses.
Shares didn't slowly lose value. They became untradeable. Exchanges closed.
Capital controls froze accounts. Ownership still existed on paper. But paper doesn't buy food.
Companies didn't vanish, but shareholders were last in line, after workers, after suppliers, after the state.
By the time trading resumed, dilution had already done the damage.
Zero doesn't always mean bankrupt. Sometimes it just means irrelevant. The same goes for bonds. Government debt sounds safe, until the government is the problem.
In collapses, bonds don't default dramatically. They erode.
Interest gets delayed. Payments get restructured. Currencies change. Terms reset. The bond survives legally, but economically, it's gone. What you get back buys a fraction of what you lent. That's zero, dressed up politely. Now, move closer to home.
Cash. This is where people get uncomfortable. Cash feels real. You can hold it, count it, hide it.
In collapses, cash doesn't disappear. It multiplies. That's the problem.
Governments print to survive, to pay workers, to keep order. The notes look the same, but their meaning changes daily.
In Zimbabwe, in Yugoslavia, in Venezuela.
People were millionaires, then billionaires, then still couldn't buy bread.
Cash didn't go to zero numerically. It went to zero functionally.
Which brings us to the assets that didn't. The first survivor is an elderly, light-skinned Caucasian man. Boring.
Almost insulting. Productive land, not speculative land. not land priced for future development. Land that produces something people need. Food, shelter, energy.
In every collapse, land that feeds people keeps value, sometimes more than before.
Because currencies fail, governments fail, but hunger doesn't. Farmland, pasture, timber, water access. These don't spike in price. They shift in importance. Ownership matters. Access matters more.
The second survivor is even less glamorous. Skills, not credentials, not titles. Skills that solve immediate problems. Fixing, building, treating, growing. In Argentina's collapse, plumbers did better than bankers. In Russia, mechanics outperformed traders. You can't eat derivatives. You can't heat a house with equity. Skills don't store value. They generate it, continuously. The third survivor surprises people. Small, local businesses with cash flow, not global giants, not growth stories.
Boring businesses that sell necessities, bakeries, repair shops, transport, basic services.
These businesses adapted faster than governments. They changed prices daily. They accepted barter. They survived volatility. Their valuation collapsed. Their usefulness didn't. Ownership in something that keeps operating matters more than ownership in something that looks impressive. The fourth survivor is harder to talk about honestly. Hard assets that travel, gold, silver, sometimes foreign currency, not as investments, as bridges. In collapses, gold doesn't make you rich, it makes you mobile.
It moves value across borders, across systems, across time. It's not productive. It's not efficient. It's trusted when nothing else is.
That trust is quiet and limited, but it lasts longer than most promises. And finally, the most misunderstood survivor. Social capital, networks, relationships, reputation.
In collapses, rules don't disappear. They become negotiable.
Knowing people.
Being known.
Being trusted locally. That determines access, safety, opportunity. This isn't corruption. It's reality.
Systems shrink. Human networks replace them. Those with no connections don't get fairness.
They get delays.
Now step back.
Notice what all surviving assets have in common.
They aren't priced for growth. They aren't dependent on distant systems. They don't rely on smooth futures.
They work in the present. Now, look at what went to zero. Paper promises, distant claims, assets that require stability to exist.
They didn't fail because they were scams. They failed because they were fragile. This is where hype collapses.
The popular idea is that collapse is chaos, fire, panic, sudden endings. Reality is administrative.
Limits, controls, delays, temporary measures. Most people don't lose everything overnight. They lose flexibility, then options, then time.
By the time collapse feels obvious, the damage is already priced in.
And here's the uncomfortable math. In every collapse, the average person didn't choose wrong assets. They chose normal ones. They trusted the system they lived in because that's rational, until it isn't. Which leads to the real question. If history keeps repeating this pattern, and modern systems are more complex, more leveraged, more interconnected, which assets today only work if everything else keeps working, and which would still matter if tomorrow quietly didn't? Because collapse doesn't announce itself. It reveals what was real all along.
Thank you for watching. Follow us on social media for more.